Right now, Tropical Storm Chris is still sitting off the North Carolina coast, bringing dangerous conditions to beaches all across the area.
And it is expected to get stronger soon. Meteorologist Evan Stewart is sitting in for Jeff Lawson tonight with the latest on Chris.
That's right, and we've been watching the Hurricane Hunter aircraft fly through the storm, getting all the latest information on it, showing signs that it hasn't really strengthened from the 5 o'clock advisory, though the pressure has dropped just a little bit. But it is expected in the next 12 to 24 hours to strengthen into a hurricane with winds of 75 miles per hour. You can see it there sitting a little more than 200 miles south of Cape Hatteras. And we have seen a couple of showers move on shore during the day today across the Outer Banks, while the rest of the region, lots of sunny skies today. Here's the latest 11 o'clock advisory from the Hurricane Center. Winds of 70 miles per hour, 210 miles south-southeast of Cape Hatteras. Still stationary. It's just been drifting around a little bit here for the past couple of days. And there are signs that since it's been sitting over the same area, there's a little bit of upwelling, meaning that some of the colder waters have come up. That's why we haven't seen that rapid strengthening like we were expecting over the past couple of days. Once it starts moving, however, and it gets out from over top of those cold waters, it is expected to strengthen into a hurricane, likely by tomorrow morning or into the afternoon. And then a cold front that'll move through here Wednesday is expected to pick it up and rapidly carry it off towards the north and east, and by Saturday be off into the North Atlantic. So the bottom line for us, clear skies for just about all of us with the exception of the Outer Banks of North Carolina. We'll also see a few showers, and the rough surf and the rip current risk continues tomorrow and even into the day on Wednesday, and that cold front will push Chris out to sea. Speaking of those clear skies, we'll see that tomorrow and a bit of a warm-up. Temperatures in the mid to upper 80s under sunny skies. Much more on our forecast and the latest on Chris and what may happen with the remnants of Beryl coming up in a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Evan. For the third day in a row, red flags are flying up and down the ocean front, thanks in part to Tropical Storm Chris.
It's a dangerous time for vacationers who may not realize how treacherous the water can be. 13 News Now reporter Robert Boyd has our story.
Well, for Virginia Beach lifeguards, their priorities are pretty simple. Number one, keep everyone safe. Number two, make sure everyone has a good time. But when the red flags are up, there's no doubt about it, safety should be on everyone's mind. Jason Crutchfield has two sons, a 4-year-old and a teenager. So he has multiple reasons to worry when the red flags are out.
If they get a little farther out, yell at them like normal.
There are 41 lifeguard posts at the oceanfront, each guard armed with a whistle, and they aren't afraid to use it.
I know people get annoyed when they hear that whistle blow time and time again, but every time they blow that whistle could be a lifesaver.
Tom Gill is in charge of these lifeguards. He says they should be every swimmer's best friend.
They absolutely should check in with the lifeguard, ask them what the conditions are, what are the restrictions that are set.
On Monday, swimmers were being told not to go deeper than their knees. Some listened, others did not.
Didn't want to go too deep because you could feel a current at sometimes, and that was a little scary being pulled out.
Connor Flannery and his girlfriend said they were prepared for a different type of beach day. What they ran into was unexpected.
We actually bought a pool float today because I thought that we were going to be able to just float on the water. I've never really seen Virginia Beach like this, and I've come several times.
Gill says he worries most about tourists who believe this is how the ocean is supposed to be in Virginia Beach, because it's not.
A lot of big winds, a lot of big waves, and when you have those combinations, that you're looking at an increased risk of rip currents.
As for the Crutchfield family, who are visiting from Connecticut, they have found a balance between safety and fun by following one basic rule.
Like, don't be an idiot and don't go out far, you know? Like, because a lot of people, they just go out too far and they can't handle the drag or the waves.
In Virginia Beach, Robert Boyd, 13 News Now.
On the Outer Banks, leaders are trying to make it easy for tourists and locals to keep up with the changing water conditions. There's a new text alert system in Dare County to help send that information to your phone. Anyone who signs up can get updates about tides, rip currents, and other safety issues. 5 swimmers have died on the Outer Banks so far this summer. To learn more about how to get these texts, go to 13newsnow.com.
President Trump has made his pick for a Supreme Court nominee. It is now up to the Senate to either confirm or vote against Brett Kavanaugh. The 53-year-old federal appellate court judge would take the place of retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy. ABC's Janae Norman has the story.
President Trump promising and delivering, nominating conservative D.C. federal appeals court judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court.
This incredibly qualified nominee deserves a swift confirmation and robust bipartisan support.
The 53-year-old was once a former clerk to the retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy. He spent years in the legal trenches for Republicans on George W. Bush's team in the Florida recount battle, serving key positions in the Bush White House and the independent counsel Ken Starr's team investigating Bill Clinton, later having second thoughts about whether presidents should be subjected to prosecution and investigations.
My judicial philosophy is straightforward. A judge must be independent and must interpret the law, not make the law. A judge must interpret statutes as written, and a judge must interpret the Constitution as written, informed by history and tradition and precedent.
Precedent will be called into question over the Roe v. Wade ruling that legalized abortion. President Trump previously pledging to supporters to appoint pro-life judges. The road to confirmation bound to be a battle in the Senate. Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine now crucial votes.
A candidate for this important position who would overturn Roe v. Wade would not be acceptable to me.
Also in the hot seat are those vulnerable red state Democrats up for re-election in November, facing mounting pressure from Democrats to oppose the president's pick, especially after approving his first Supreme Court appointee, Neil Gorsuch. But voting for a conservative to replace conservative Antonin Scalia will prove to be very different than voting for a nominee like Brett Kavanaugh, who could tip the Supreme Court toward conservatives. So this is sure to be a fight. Janae Norman, ABC News from the Supreme Court.
Senators from Virginia and North Carolina reacted almost immediately to the president's announcement.
Senator Mark Warner says he plans to, quote, carefully examine Judge Kavanaugh's record and judicial philosophy, but that he can't and won't support a nominee who would take this country backwards.
Senator Tim Kaine echoed Warner's concerns and says he'll focus on Kavanaugh's stance on 4 issues, including the Affordable Care Act, civil rights, reproductive rights, and enacting checks on the president.
In North Carolina, Senator Thom Tillis said Kavanaugh has impeccable credentials and that he hopes his colleague will put party politics aside to fairly and thoughtfully assess Judge Kavanaugh.
Right now, we're working to learn more about the pilot involved in a deadly helicopter crash in Williamsburg. We do know crews recovered the pilot's body early this morning after the chopper came crashing down yesterday evening. The National Transportation Safety Board says the pilot left the Williamsburg-Jamestown Airport around 4:30 Sunday. The chopper made it less than a mile before crashing into the Bristol Commons townhomes. Investigators say many people who lived there had a similar description of the crash.
We have started collecting a few witness statements that have mentioned interesting things about the engine sounding unusual or the engine sounding funny. We're not done reviewing all of those, and we don't know what those mean.
Along with the pilot, 91-year-old Jean Danelko, who lived in the townhomes, also died. The NTSB tells us they'll have a preliminary report in the next couple of weeks, but the full investigation could take a year and a half. This type of helicopter involved in this crash is an R-44 model made by Robinson Helicopter Company. It's a common 4-seat helicopter. Between April of 2007 and now, the NTSB has investigated 100 events involving this kind of helicopter on U.S. soil, not including this crash. 18 were deadly and 29 people died. None of these incidents happened on Virginia soil.
Right now, the family of a missing mother in Virginia Beach is pleading for help. No one has seen Bellamy Gamboa since July 1st. Police have activated a critically missing adult alert, or Ashanti alert, for her. Gamboa's family met with Virginia Beach police today and expanded their search to social media. They've created a Facebook page and hashtag called Bring Bellamy Home. Some celebrities have even posted about it. Her family hopes the social media push will help bring her home.
New at 11, it was a busy 4th of July holiday for state police in Virginia. Troopers tell us they arrested nearly 1 drunk driver an hour. That happened between early Tuesday morning, the 3rd, and late Wednesday evening, the 4th. We're told in all, 42 suspected drunk drivers were arrested. They also stopped nearly 5,000 people for speeding and another 1,200 for reckless driving. In Virginia, there were 3 deadly crashes over that period of time. None was local.